View from the Gutters, Episode 17. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss King City, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip ahead to 3550. Alright, welcome to View from the Gutters.
View from the Gutters. I was going to do that.
You're going to do it? No, it's 17.
It's episode 17 in a limited run. It's actually Ken Burns' View from the Gutters. It's part 17 of a 1,000-part series.
I thought that we were a Marvel Limited Series, issue 17 out of 4.
Yeah.
Wait, no, don't take that.
I'm taking your phone away. I'm taking it away from it. It is a safe place. It's like 5 feet away from you. It's safe.
Oh, God. Whatever. Apparently, I'm still in elementary school.
Joe, there's no one in the outside world that's more important to you than us.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are no boobs in this room. That's like categorically false.
I got the internet. We'll find some.
No, but
we'll find some. We'll make them.
I deserted. I took my girlfriend out to dinner tonight with a good friend and another good friend, and I left them to come here and talk about comic books with a bunch of guys, which means I need my head examined. Really
That means you have your priorities straight.
I left a date to come to this podcast.
Why did you guys do
I
had to come back from...
I had to be here because I picked the book. You didn't have to be here. And if you
I have to be here to keep you motherfuckers on task.
No, but that's the thing. You told them to be here to keep us on task.
We could have moved the day, guys. Just saying. I didn't hear any complaints.
I had a speech.
No. Absolutely not.
I'm
same day every fucking week.
I'm taking a zero.
I will fucking bleed from my eyes.
I'm taking a zero tolerance pause. I'm like rescheduling anything, any extracurricular activities that I'm doing now. Today was like the last straw on a few things.
Nothing is more important than this podcast.
All right, then why are you guys complaining? Here we are.
All right, what are we talking about?
King
Welcome
City.
to View from the Gutter.
Starting over. View from the Gutter.
Welcome to View from the Gutter.
Episode 17.
Your source for all the world's news as it happens.
Yeah.
All right.
King City.
King City, give me my phone.
I'm not going to give you your phone
Give me
back.
my phone.
Just calm down, Joe. You're not gonna,
What if my kid sets herself on fire?
What?
Then your girlfriend will take care of it.
Yeah, someone will take care of that. The fire department will be there. What are you going to do? You're here. You're in the middle of a podcast.
I would leave.
No.
Clearly, I would leave.
You just told us how important this was to you.
No, I'm reconsidering right now.
So, Cade, what did you think of King City?
I really liked King City. There were a couple parts of it that I didn't like, but overall, I felt that it was a really good book.
I agree with that sentiment. Would you like to elaborate on that?
How I recommended it to my friend, actually, I felt summed it up better than most. It was Scott Pilgrim in an adult universe.
The way that I like to describe it is Scott Pilgrim meets Transmetropolitan with a twist of anime.
Exactly.
I think those are both really valid ways to describe it. I mean, I feel like it's Scott Pilgrim as an anime, almost.
I mean, Scott Pilgrim is already a little bit on it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I felt it had too many poop jokes, but other than that...
I don't think there's a such thing as too many poop jokes.
Actually, it was interesting. I've been following Brandon Graham's Twitter since we talked about Prophet back in issue 9. Nine. And he recently, as of this recording, linked to somebody who did a review of King City who talked about the presence of the male gaze within the work. Graham himself said, a lot of this criticism is really valid, and it's not, the work that I was doing when I was doing this 3 or 5 or 7 years ago, whenever it was originally produced, is not what I'm doing today. And, I still stand by the work, but if I had to do it again, it's not necessarily what I would do. Mm-hmm. And that person, I think, was right. There is a very strong presence of the male gaze there. But I feel like it's not necessarily to the detriment of the work.
Yeah.
No, I think it kind of grounds it.
There's a lot of pointing out of girls' butts, honestly.
Yeah. There is. But
I think
that's...
I appreciated that on a certain level.
To be honest, though, there's a lot of pointing out of everything. There's lots of little in-jokes that are just, like a piece of text next to a person. There's a lot of great jokes.
There's a lot of puns.
Yeah, well, Jose.
Really great puns.
Jose, and spelled with the Spanish spelling J, and then a guy next to him, and it says Hose B, spelled with the English spelling H-O. And it's like little shit like that throughout the book made me chuckle all over the place. So yeah, I mean, like, there are plenty of times where they're pointing out, like, hey, look at her butt. But there are other times where it's like, hey, look at this guy with a funny name. Yeah. Like, it's just lots of little side jokes, side note kind of things. And also that checking out girl's butt moment is very telling of the character's own mindset.
I think it's central to the character,
super...
Pretty early in the first issue, the main character gets injured because somebody shot a snot rocket at him.
His own snot rocket.
A booger.
It's his own snot rocket back at him, too.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I mean, I think it's funny because we were talking about this a little. Me and Tobiah were talking about this a little bit earlier in the week, and I'm going through and rereading. I'm catching up on the new 52 because I denounce it constantly, and I kind of wanted to have a little bit of basis for that. And the amount of the presence of male gaze in those books is astounding to me. And I grew up reading comics in the 90s, like Image comics, and it's really like a step back to that time. So I look at this and I'm like, yeah, it's there, and but I don't think it is to the detriment of the book, and I do think it's about him. It's a character-driven piece, and so he's like, oh damn.
Yeah, it's also really self-aware in a way that those Image books or DC now isn't, where it's like, yeah, we know what we're doing. Like, look at that butt. Like, it just DC is doing that, but they're not, like, in no way are they self-aware. They're just like, whoops, we accidentally put that in.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the main character, like, he runs into a girl, and throughout the entire encounter, he's ogling her ass. Yeah. And then later he runs into her again. He realizes he doesn't know her name.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're that girl from the ass." I mean,
bar.
The bar.
I also like that when he draws the portrait of her, he's like, I ran out of room for her head, and it's just her butt. And then the other character, Pete, right? Is that his name? His friend with the mask.
Yes.
And he was like, oh, I recognize her from the portrait.
Exactly. Like, they're plot points, and they're like, it's like, oh, look at that butt. But
it's not unintentional.
No.
It's intentionally there, and it works within the context of the comic.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's why it's kind of, I think there's a difference between, and I think it's the same thing for a lot of these kind of cliche, tropish things that happen in comics, because it is traditionally a very male-oriented business, which is sad, because I think that there's a lot of alienation of female readers, but in this, it is definitely central to the story. Like I said, it's a character-driven piece, and it's central to the character. And so it's not there for the sake, and I feel like in a lot of things, it's there just for the sake of getting there. It's like, this is like 15 months old, but in the first issue of Catwoman, you have her getting ready. She's leaving her apartment, and her tits are hanging out the whole time.
It's the first time you see her, too.
It's the first time you see her.
To the character is her boobs first.
And there is no reason for it, and there's also no reason for the fact that she's wearing some kind of lacy lingerie. It's like, this is Catwoman. She's going to be running around Gotham.
Yeah.
Why isn't she wearing like a sports bra or something practical? Like, are we really living in that time?
Well,
no.
It was my problem with the Chris Nolan Catwoman, too. It was like, I liked most aspects of her, except that she had 18-inch heels on. And you're like, really? God. Really,
but it
guys?
did allow them in the brilliant parody of Call Me Maybe, which was titled Batman Maybe, to make an amazing rhyme.
Yeah.
An amazing stanza.
Okay, I have to correct myself quickly. This isn't 5 or 7 years old. This is 2 years old. Right. Way the fuck off based on that. But more to your point, I think that this comic very elegantly illustrates the difference between pornography and erotica.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Many of those DC comics and mainstream comics in general are pornographic in the way that they, the male gaze undresses the female superheroes and disenfranchises them as characters and makes them into objects.
Absolutely.
This comic is very much about eroticism, about the characters, the main character, Joe's, interest in these women and the way that he views them. Mm-hmm. And the raw sexuality that he imbues upon them.
Yeah.
Well, it also changes based on each woman that he meets. Like, it's not like this is not a big whitewashed statement or whatever, but it's not, he doesn't treat every female character in the same way. The character that is hypersexualized is essentially a sex object to the main character.
Right.
Like, all he knows from her is he gets jobs from her and then he sleeps with her. Like, their relationship isn't good. She isn't a deep character to him. Like, he doesn't understand very much about her. She's super mysterious.
Yeah.
And so we, as readers now, know very little about her, except that she's a very sexual person and she sends him on missions. Like, we get to share in that kind of experience.
Yeah.
As opposed to his ex-girlfriend, who's a much more well-rounded character. We don't see as erotically as we see
no, absolutely
BB or what is it? Baby?
Bebe.
Yeah.
Bebe.
You know, we don't see his ex-girlfriend like that. We see her as a caring woman, a strong character, you know, someone who's passionate about things. We get to see more about her because the main character knows more about her.
Yeah.
And I think that that's strong writing.
Even
if it's accidental, I think that
it's good character development.
Yeah.
It's good fleshing out of the characters, which I think it's... what did I just read that was like really... I read Black Kiss by Howard Chaykin, which is...
That's a vampire one, right?
No. Well, yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
It's transsexuals and vampires.
Yeah.
And...
it's weird.
But, like, you know, at some point you're reading it and you're actually, like, forget the fact that this shit is so outlandish. It's unbelievable. And you're like... what's going on here? Like, what? Like, you actually start to care. It's like, and it's a function of his writing. When you can put that aside and go, oh, okay, now I'm interested. Now I want to know. I've been going crazy because I get all these different views on Catwoman, and I'm like, there's no emotional connection for me there. So that whole first issue is just like it's shit. I'm like, to me, it's just very typical male gaze bullshit, and I'm like, but I talk to other people and they're like, no, there's like, I had an emotional connection to that. I saw this and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, maybe that's not there for me. Maybe, you know, and I always wonder if is it my bias because I've read other things because I have a greater breadth, or is it just that is it like a bias? Is it not an honest critique of the work?
I think that with all, you know, works that we absorb, whether it's a film or literature or whatever, like, we're all going to bring our own bias to it one way or another.
Absolutely.
And I think that the way that a comic speaks to us is important. And if that's your initial reaction, then it's like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't read this book. Like, it's a good litmus test for, like, whether a comic is going to be good for you, is like how certain subjects that you care about are treated. And
I think that's an important part, or an important point to make, is whether the comic is right for you.
Absolutely. King City is not for everybody, but
I kind of want to go down a rabbit hole for a second here and talk about Jeff Jocks, who, if you've been following the webcomic scene at all, you know Jeff Jocks is the author and artist behind questionable content. And one of the things that was really interesting to me about Jeff Jocks is that when he first started that comic, he was not a good artist. And his art grew, and even his writing grew immensely in the first however many years that he was doing that. And I feel like he's kind of plateaued at this point to a certain extent. And maybe he'll get off that plateau at some point in the future and start improving again. But I think one of the things that interests me most about Brandon Graham as a comic creator is how much he's grown just in the 3 years since he did this.
Right.
Looking both at Prophet, which is a very, very different work, but also Multiple Warheads, which could very easily be in the same universe for all I know. It's very similar to King City.
Right.
But it shows how much he's grown in just those 3 years. And I'm really interested to see what he does 3 years from now.
One of the most exciting things about comics for me is watching someone, you know, go from someone that no one knows to watch their skills improve and then watch them blow up. It's something that I feel like I got to do with Remender. I mean, he was... you know, in the last few years has just exploded, and it's great to see like talent like that really explode and get recognized. And I think that's a cool thing about Brandon Graham.
The opposite arc is Jeff Johns and Mark Millar, who started out really strongly and then just kind of
we really need
collapsed. I'm sorry, Mark.
What's not said about Jamie McKelvey and
Killian Gillen,
I mean, who are the opposite of
who started in these
Jeff
kind of
Johns.
weird places, and
they started in a very weird place, and they've gone mainstream, and they've done very, very well, and they've improved immensely in the very short period of time that they've been doing mainstream work.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing to me is, even if you get like a younger writer, and they're raw in the beginning, and maybe they're not articulating their ideas in the best way, you can see those ideas there. You can, like Jamie McKelvey did Phonogram,
He did do Phonogram. And I read Phonogram and I said, this isn't great.
But the idea's there.
Just looking at it, that these people have an incredible amount of talent. I mean, when Jamie McKelvey drew Phonogram, God, what's the name of the
Kieran
musician?
Gill. Oh, God.
With the glasses from the 70s.
Is David? No, wait, which one? The glasses from the...
Okay.
The musician with the glasses from the 70s. That's not enough.
It's, God, showing my inability to remember a fucking thing. But in any case, he draws this very famous musician whose name is completely escaping me right now, and it really shouldn't. And it looks nothing like him. You can't tell, except for the fact that it says in the text that this is who it is.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem that he has anymore. He's much, much better at distinguishing faces and characters.
Right.
And the writer as well has grown immensely. Kieran Gillen's recent run on Journey into Mystery was incredible. It was one of the best superhero comics last year.
Yeah.
To the extent that it is a superhero comic.
I always think of, whenever I think of growth as an artist, I always think of Steve Dillon, who did Preacher. And I like Preacher. I don't love it. I don't think I mean, I think it deserves a certain amount of praise because of what it did for the industry, or what it did for the medium, rather. But I also feel that it's not necessarily...
Why did you give him his phone back?
My feelings on his side. I really liked Steve Dillon's art until I started reading other things Steve Dillon had penciled, and then I realized he can only draw 3 faces. Yeah. I was like, wow, it's Tulip and Jesse and... what's his name?
Yeah.
And on this page too, and I'm like, are these the same people? It's like, it was almost confusing. So,
yeah, I think watching an artist or a writer really expand. Hickman, who we talked about on S.H.I.E.L.D., is another one of those where I remember, when he was doing Red Mask from Mars and Nightly News and all that, and you could tell he had, a great amount of potential.
Yeah.
And now that he's in the public spotlight and he gets to do stuff for Marvel and he gets to write Secret Warriors and Fantastic Four and all these, more mainstream books, you get to see that, it pays off, all of those great ideas that were hidden in there.
Yeah.
He gets to now kind of expand up. Matt Fraction was the same way.
Yeah.
With, Five Fists of Science and then Casanova.
Oh, so good.
And then, and then getting a chance to do Immortal Iron Fist. So it's one of my favorite parts about comics. A great side note is definitely watching someone grow. And doing this book after we did Prophet is really interesting because he's come
we definitely
so
need
far.
To read a Matt Fraction book because I think we nominated a few of them and we skipped past them. I guess Fear Agent was... No,
that's Remender. I don't think we've
done Fraction.
Yeah, I don't think that we've done any Fraction. We've definitely recommended it. I know you recommended Iron Fist.
I recommended Iron Fist. I know that Matt McGinnis recommended, I think it was Mantooth. That was
Annotated Mantooth. I think we've recommended it a couple times, but for the most part, we need to get a Fraction book on here. But definitely go search out these authors and illustrators we've talked about, artists for sure.
Yeah, and definitely check out Fraction if you haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, find something by him because most of the stuff that he's done has been good.
Yeah, I think if you're a Marvel fan, there's lots of good stuff out there for you. And if you like independent comics, he's got a couple of great independent comics as well. Casanova was Fraction and Five Fists of Science.
Five Fists of Science is... It's not my favorite thing, but it's good.
It's a great freshman effort, I think, because I feel like that was one of the first things, if not the very first thing that he had published. And it's like what we were talking about earlier, it's that you can see the ideas are there. The execution will come later.
Right.
And he's improved immensely, and I think he's probably one of the best writers in the game right now, doing stuff like the kind of stuff that he does, the superhero books and the Marvel stuff, so...
Yeah. I'm just flipping through King City as we're talking, and it's amazing to me how many random background things there are, just little jokes, a couple of pieces of dialogue, or a character in the background with a little sign next to them that says something. It's incredible to me how layered this is.
Oh yeah, there's so many little in-jokes and little side puns and things that I definitely will be going back to read it again. This is my first time reading it. I will definitely read it again.
Yeah.
After reading this book, it really made me want to buy Brandon Graham a beer.
Yeah.
You just know that anything...
I'm not sure at this point if this podcast is actually going to drop before or after we go to Emerald City, but Graham is going to be there, and I think we definitely need to give him a warm reception.
Yeah, I'll probably try to get something signed for sure. Or
Definitely.
I'm gonna try to get a sketch in my Batman sketchbook.
I'm certainly going to shake his hand.
Yeah.
And say thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Graham.
Yeah, he's definitely the kind of person we need in comic books right now.
He really is, and it actually makes me interested to see what he would do if he could get his hands on a piece of a Marvel comic or a DC comic. Like, what would he do in that circumstance?
I also just finished reading this and immediately wanted more King City.
Yeah.
So I hope that someday he does
It is a little unfortunate because the series really does kind of end on an indefinite note.
Yeah, you get a little bit of resolution with some of the characters, but it definitely feels like there are more stories to be told.
Well,
Right.
I think that is the point of it, being a city. There are infinite more stories that aren't being told in the comic, and it leaves room for your imagination to take over. And what are some of those other stories?
Yeah.
What is the
that's a good point.
Yeti who runs nowhere doing at
Yeah.
the end?
Yeah. There's so much left to be mined here, and I hope that he gets a chance to go back and tackle a little bit of it.
It's one of the reasons why it reminds me so much of Transmetropolitan, because in the middle of Transmetropolitan, there are a lot of kind of one-off stories of just, this is Spider Jerusalem as a journalist telling the story of something that's happening in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you get that sense from King City as well, that there's this city where at any given moment there's 1,000 things going on, and you can never hope to track all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But at any given moment, there's something interesting happening that you can tell a story about.
Yeah. I think it's also really great that Image bought this from Tokyo Pop and we get to see it as like a big, full-size, excellently published book. Because,
yes, thank you, Image.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your next project, you need to go out and buy another Tokyo property, Wonton Soup, and publish that in full size instead of in the manga tiny size, because that book by James Stoke is really reminiscent of King City to me. And I think that if you've enjoyed King City, Wonton Soup is definitely a book you should pick up.
Yeah, I haven't read that, but I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's about chefs in the future in space battling each other. And if that isn't enough to pique your interest, I don't know what is. It's also drawn by James Stoke, who's a fantastic illustrator, in black and white, much in the same way of King City. And I know that Brandon Graham and James Stoke get compared a lot. But I would love to see Wonton Soup as a full-size book in the way that King City got an excellent kind of phone book style reprint from King City. So
yeah, the King City reprint is excellent. If you haven't actually picked it up yet, it's like
$20. It's $20.
It's thick as hell. I mean, it's several hundred pages. You really get your money's worth.
It's a great read. The art's at a fantastic size. You can read and see all those little in-jokes that are in the background that would really suffer from being in a smaller size. So,
and it's all 12 issues, isn't it?
It's everything.
It's
everything
the
that
thing.
there is King City, including some like backups drawn by different artists, and some of the back matter that was on the back covers, and crosswords and board games. I don't know if there's ever been another comic book that had a board game in the middle of it, but this one does.
I really liked that.
Game.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wonton Soup, are you familiar with a comic called Get Jiro?
No.
Anthony Bourdain. I only flipped through it in the comic store. I have actually a note down that I need to get it. But it's set in the near future where like cooking is supreme. Like getting to taste the food of a high level cook is like the greatest thing that you can get. And the police are after this like renegade outlaw cook, like chef named Jiro. It looks really cool.
I've wanted to read it for a while. I've read Anthony Bourdain's fiction.
Yeah.
Before he like really blew up.
Well, Kitchen Confidential.
No, his fiction. Like he wrote a couple novels before he did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, before he did Kitchen Confidential. So, the one I read was called Going Bamboo, and it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't like amazing, but it was good.
Yeah,
It was
he's
enjoyable,
I think he's an excellent writer. I love, all the stuff he writes now. I just read his latest one.
Medium Raw.
Medium Raw.
That's a great book.
It was really good.
That's meditation.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was reading it when I read Kitchen Confidential, 10 years ago for all of us, right? But like, he's talking about how he's much more mellow now, and I was like, wow, that's like I was able to relate to some of that. So, interesting guy, Anthony Bourdain. I've definitely wanted to read Get Jiro.
Yeah, Wonton Soup is set in the far-flung future, so there's like no remnants of Earth, and they're like they battle like in arenas.
Iron Chef style.
Yeah, but they're like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Like martial arts cooking.
Yeah, it's like
good.
as if samurai, as if you train to be a chef in the same way you train to be a samurai. Like you have a master and you
Which
go
I
to a
think you
specific
should.
dojo, and like it's really interesting story. And it was one of James Stokes' first before Orkstein. It was published by Tokyo Pop as well, probably around the same time that King City was coming out.
Yeah, Tokyo
so.
Pop was doing some really interesting stuff for a while, and it seems like they've kind of that's kind of dried up. A little bit,
I think
which is unfortunate.
Fortunately, though, I think Image picked up a lot of the great writer artists that were there.
Well,
like,
they've republished that stuff, and they're I guess they're publishing their new stuff. I mean,
yeah, Brandon Graham's new stuff is coming out through Image. James Stokes' new stuff is coming out through Image, and I know there are a couple other guys that were at Tokyo Pop also have moved some of their stuff to Image. So, thank you, Image, for giving those guys a place to work for sure, because their stuff is really excellent.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm interested to see. I really, I've been thinking about this a lot. I really want to see what Brandon Graham's going to do once he kind of. I always find myself wondering: is this guy going to want to write something big in the future? Something because I'm like super interested to see what he would do with like a character that's a little more mainstream. Not that I would care if he ever did or not, but I'm like. He's one of those writers that I like his writing so much that I'm like super curious to know what he would do with a character like.
This is a vaguely obscure reference, but I'm thinking about it because I'm looking at the coat that Joe is wearing, which you can't see obviously. But I'm wondering if what Brandon Graham has done thus far is his problem sleuth, and where is his Homestuck?
Where is his Homestuck going to be?
Which, if you know anything about Andrew Hussey, Problem Sleuth was a comic he did a number of years ago, and then Homestuck basically took that and multiplied it by 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, where is that thing that Brandon Graham is going to do that's 1,000 times more than what he's done already?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I can't see him writing somebody like Batman or Superman or something, but I could like totally see him writing like a Martian Manhunter story or something.
Green
Somebody
Lantern.
like,
I would love to see him
Green
like pick an
Lantern.
obscure
Oh my
Green
God.
Lantern.
But he wouldn't write like
Not Green Lantern, but Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, like someone from the
could
core.
do
Yeah.
An amazing Green
like
Lantern
The Adventures
logo.
of Toma Ray, or just
Yeah,
something
somebody.
crazy. And I really feel like, I'd like to see it be a thing where he's amassed the audience and he has the pull to just go and be like, I want to do this, and they're like, okay. And now I don't necessarily trust DC to have the brains to do that.
No, DC won't do it, but hopefully Marvel
But,
will.
like,
And Marvel's
yeah.
got some really fun characters. To
I
play
could
with as
see
well.
him writing like
Rocket
It's
Raccoon.
It's
Oh,
totally
yeah.
It's totally going to be one of those
Starjammers.
things where they're like,
Starjammers.
we're not going to give you a Spider-Man. We're not going to give you They're too big for you. We're going to give you a character that nobody cares
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
We're going to give you Quasar or
Yeah.
something.
Dude, he would be
And
like-
then he takes it and he completely blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, this character's too big for you to be doing. We're going to
Yeah.
give it to Brian Michael Bendis or
Yeah.
something.
And then Bendis
And
would be
then
Years
like,
from now,
fuck it up.
Quasar is in the Avengers.
Yeah.
mean, that's-
that happens every time.
That's what happened to the Hulk. I don't remember which writer it was, but the Hulk was very much like not part of like big Marvel comics, and then they did Planet Hulk,
Yeah.
and then
That
they
was
followed
all
up
Greg
with
Pak.
World War
Greg Pak,
Hulk,
yeah.
and it was World War Hulk was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I
yeah.
think they never should have brought him back. This is the biggest disappointment, I think. There's a couple big times where Marvel chose to kind of retcon a situation in which, like, I wish they had gone further with it. One was one I mentioned, I think, last week with the Spider-Man Back in Black, where I would have liked to see more of Spider-Man kind of running away from S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government, kind of trying to be a different character while Mary Jane's off in Europe hiding or whatever. I would have liked to see that. They immediately backtracked on that. Planet Hulk is another one, because you leave him out in space like that, like they did. If you just left him out there, you know what happens to be going on at the exact same time? All of that Marvel cosmic shit. Who would not have loved to have
my
seen
God.
Hulk be one of the kings in War of Kings?
Oh my God.
That would have been
incredible.
fucking amazing. Like, I would
That
love
would've
to
been so
see
much
Hulk
better than anything
punching
else.
Gladiator
This is
and
yeah.
and he can hang
I mean,
with guys like
they had that
Thanos and
moment
everything.
in World War Hulk where he fights Black Bolt.
Yeah.
How much would you have loved for that to have been like an entire issue?
Oh my
of
God.
Hulk and his army.
Oh, yeah.
fighting the
No,
humans
absolutely.
and the Kree.
Well, I mean, Nova got so strong that he was more powerful than any character in the Marvel Universe proper on Earth after he absorbed the Nova Corps. And, like, no one on the Earth could go toe-to-toe with him except Hulk, whose power is limitless. Like, he just gets more mad, and he cannot be killed, he cannot be defeated. Like, you can up his power level to those cosmic guys' power level, and you could have done a great story, like him and Drax fighting. I mean, like...
You just made me a little bit sick to my stomach because that doesn't exist.
No, I know.
But you see, the thing is, and this is what I'm starting to realize.
Should have been a cosmic
Eventually, it will. Eventually, somebody will have that idea. Somebody wants to write that story right now.
But man, Abnett and Landon could have knocked that out of the fucking park.
If we had $1 for every amazing story idea, I mean, starting with, and we all know this, if you read comic books and you read the Red Hood, we all know the real way Jason Todd should have been brought back. They did it in the animated movie, and the only reason they didn't do it in the storyline is because they had to have an Infinite Crisis tie-in.
Yeah,
right.
There's
like
plenty of editorial.
If we had $1
like
for every editorial fuck up that Marvel and DC have ever done, we would own them. Yeah. Like, we could buy them and then we could make those stories real.
Yeah, but it is true that every time a character becomes popular, they suddenly become part of the Avengers, because Nova ended up on the Avengers right after that big Marvel Cosmic push. And
when you want to make a team more popular, you put Wolverine on them.
Yeah,
the most overrated character in comic books.
I don't know. There was
until Jason Aaron got his hands on him. Another writer who started small with Scalped and for Vertigo.
I haven't noticed Jason Aaron up until last week. I finally caught up on Thor, God of Thunder, which is by Jason Aaron, and that series has really impressed me.
Yeah. He's writing Hulk right now, and I'm so tempted to pick it up because I'm a huge Hulk
it'd be
fan.
Amazing.
Well, if it's half as good as Thor, God of Thunder, you should definitely pick it up.
I think these are characters he should be writing, because he doesn't take the edge off. Like, when I was reading Wolverine, and I'm like, I am not a Wolverine fan, and I haven't been since the 90s. Like, you had Wolverine fans that were crazy. They were not... It's like there's a hierarchy here, right? I mean, like, people are talking about Wolverine versus Lobo, and I'm like, Lobo wins. Lobo fights gods. Lobo fights Superman, right? I mean, and clearly, the Hulk could not win against... Or the Wolverine could not win against the Hulk. He could not win against Lobo. Period. Yeah. End of statement. But they were like, yes, I could. So
Wolverine's first appearance is fighting the Hulk.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I guess he did lose.
He lacked the physical strength to push his claws through the Hulk's skin.
Because the Hulk is the most awesome Marvel character there is. And thank you, Joss Whedon.
Clearly,
thank you, Joss Whedon,
Triathlon is the coolest Marvel character ever.
Well, hopefully he'll be
3 times stronger than the Hulk.
He'll be in Avengers 2.
That's the storyline I want to see. Like, you're like, Hulk as a cosmic character. I want to see the Hulk and Triathlon on a road trip, and the Hulk gets really mad and strong, and Triathlon gets 3 times stronger than that. Yeah. 3 times infinity. It's still infinity.
Yeah. Not really. But
no,
okay.
it really is. But anyway,
would you like to talk about set theory?
No.
I would. I'm always down to talk about set theory, but
show's canceled.
Angry guy talks about math.
Yeah. We could use the Ben Arctarsky paradox to talk about if we broke Andrew into his component parts and built 2 Andrews out of those pieces, he would hate math the same amount.
Canceled.
Canceled. Joe Preti, math tutor.
Canceled.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be bigger than anything.
You can do that
bigger than Superman.
On your own show.
Bigger than Superman.
If you had a Marvel comic and we needed a superlative, it would be the mathematical Joe.
Absolutely, it would be. But it would largely be me sitting at home in sweatpants playing video games.
That's a terrible
Joe, somebody's writing a bad proof.
It would be awesome.
It would be amazing.
All right.
Well,
we've diverged.
Yeah.
King City. It's great. You should read it.
Oh, I was going to thank Joss Whedon for making everyone realize what I've known for years.
That the Hulk
is the most awesome character ever.
The Hulk is awesome. I've known
for that alone, I will be forever indebted to Joss Whedon.
Here's to dress up like a 20s gangster.
And
is it Joe Fixit?
It was Joe Fixit.
Yeah.
And Mark Ruffalo fucking nailed the Hulk.
Oh, he really did.
Yeah.
He did. I was skeptical, but he did. He really
did. Is the word I was looking for.
And it's funny because I wasn't a big Hulk reader, but when I was 15, 16, I started getting into... I had gotten into comics, and the only thing I remember from that point in the Hulk was it was Smart Hulk. It was when... Banner and the Hulk were able to coexist in the body, and the
This is
cop
Peter David.
It
shoots-
is a
It is.
low point.
Yeah, I agree.
It is, but the most enduring memory I have of him is this cop shoots him with a shotgun, and he's like, if I hadn't flexed it just the right way, that bullet could have ricocheted off my chest and hurt somebody. And I'm like, who says that? Who says that? Superman has never said that.
So
Doc Samson says that.
Doc Samson probably says that.
Peter
At
David.
one point, Doc Samson was giving therapy to the Hulk, I think.
Yeah.
He was. Actually, not too long ago.
Peter David
Many times.
wrote
Peter David.
my most favorite Hulk. Well,
That's the
one of my
Future
most
Imperfect.
favorite. Yeah, one of my most favorite Hulk stories, Hulk Future Imperfect, and all of my least favorite Hulk stories. Like,
Well, you know.
unfortunately, you can't win them all.
These things happen.
Yeah.
It happens.
Oh well.
At least it wasn't, Rob Liefeld.
You said wasn't-
My heart sank because I love Deathstroke the Terminator. And when I found out they gave him to Rob Liefeld, I was like, so wait a minute. He couldn't write Deadpool and you're going to give him the original? Like, what the...
No, well,
Kill
that's-
yourself.
that's
In the words of my roommate, kill yourself.
Hey, those are my words.
I never hear you say them. I only hear...
Oh, okay.
I only hear
I'm pretty sure you got it from me.
Kenny.
I'm gonna take credit for that, even if it's not my joke.
that's
It's mine.
fine. That's
Patented.
fine.
It's on the air.
It's on the air? That doesn't...
Recorded.
That's not the way that
Patented.
works at all.
Pretty sure it is.
That's not the way it works at all.
Pretty sure it is. Not a doctor,
Pretty sure.
but I'm pretty sure that's
He
how
said
it
it
works.
on his podcast not too long before I heard you say it on this one, so he's got it.
I don't know about that. All right, you want to talk about?
Let's talk about recommendations.
Yeah, you guys done with King City? Anything
I
you
don't
wanna
think
add?
Chard should be able to recommend this week because he's insisting that there's only been one generation of iPad because a generation is 60 years.
That's a fact.
I don't think that there's anyone anywhere who would argue that generation is 60 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
20 years. 20, maybe 30.
I think it's 60.
I
You're
think
completely
you're wrong.
wrong.
I think you continue to be wrong.
I don't
think
think
this is
that's
going to be
I'm
an
pretty sure that Moore's Law defines a hardware generation as 18 months.
And I think if we were going to come up with a superlative for your book, it would be the wrong Chard.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
I'm glad.
My book would be better than yours.
I know. No, it wouldn't. I mean, they would give it to somebody like Bendis would write it first, and people would be like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." But then they'd give it to like,
Bendis would be way too wordy.
Yeah, no.
"That's
I
right."
need like a.
No, Joe
I need
Kelly
like
would
a-
write you at first, and
Oh,
then
man, that
Bendis
would be
would take
amazing.
over.
No, what
at
I would-
issue 12 and just run it into the
I need
ground.
someone who really like understands me on a fundamental level. So probably someone like Rob Liefeld or
Peter David.
Peter David.
Peter David. Future.
or
Rob
J. Michael
Future,
Straczynski.
unfuture, imperfect.
He could draw you with Tyrannosaurus arms.
Oh my god,
Oh my
please.
God, that'd
I
be
can't lift
amazing.
my gun, it's too big. My ankles are too weak to support
Again,
my
that's my
muscles.
goddamn, I'm wrong about everything.
My ankles have snapped under my massive muscles. How will I ever get to the place that I need to be wrong at?
Okay.
You guys want to talk about King City anymore? I mean, there's a lot of
I think we're
stuff to talk
done.
about
I think
there.
I think we managed to drag Toby into the
No.
madness, the madcast.
Madcast.
Joe, what did you
Patent
bring?
pending.
I brought Parker the Hunter. This is Darwin Cook's retelling of the.
This is one of your goddamn noir stories.
Yes.
This is not really noir. I would say this is more. It is hard boiled. I don't
It's
necessarily.
absolutely crime fiction.
It is crime fiction, and it's based on Donald Westlake, who wrote a lot of crime fiction, wrote these books under the pseudonym Richard Stark. And they based the movie Payback on it, which I think is an enjoyable movie. But Darwin Cook put his considerable talents towards this, and he pencils it and he adapts it, and it is stunning. It is absolutely beautiful. The artwork it's like beautiful pop art. He does a wonderful job adapting it. The character design is amazing. The coloring it's all like black, white, and this amazing like
Rich blue.
yeah, like rich, almost a turquoise blue. It's like a dark blue, and it's
Grayish
just
blue.
it's
It's good.
it's one of my favorite things to read.
It's
At no point does it ever feel like you're bogged down in text or whatever, and I think it really captures like the essence of the original story. And Parker is a badass. He is not here to fuck around.
You want to
Like,
pass that over here?
Yeah, it's a great story. It's super cinematic.
Yeah,
and it's
it really...
it's very of its era. Like, he adapts it, but he doesn't modernize it.
Yeah, no.
His art is super retro. It's set in the 60s still.
And he's got that 50s square line Joel Stein line art. And it's cinematic without being self-indulgent, which I think is really... We were talking about cinematic a little bit about Alex Ross, and I think Alex Ross tends to fall into that a little bit with his artwork, and Darwin Cook never does. It's just absolutely gorgeous from page 1 to the end.
If you liked New
very
Frontier,
stylized.
yeah, it's extremely
it's super stylized, but I don't think it's stylized in the way that Mignola is, or who else were we talking? No, we were talking about Mignola and Cosmic Odyssey.
Yeah. It reminded me of like a magazine illustration.
From
like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, very pop art.
Super of that era.
He did the New Age, right? It was a DC Elseworlds.
New Frontier.
The New Frontier.
Yeah, New Frontier, if you liked that, is really similar to that. Also, Darwin Cook's take on Will Eisner's The Spirit was also very stylized like this. This is the most stylized I think I've ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think it's because of the story. Yeah. And I think I think it avoids a lot of the pitfalls that Sin City falls into, which I think of as neo-noir, like ultra-noir. Because it's not a stark black and white, because he's not like just swiping the page with his big black brush. He uses this really great, deep, beautiful blue that it maintains, like, you still get the shadow and the feeling of like kind of an underworld but you're never like bogged down in it. I don't think it ever gets too dark.
It's not hyper gritty.
Yeah, no, and like it's not overly violent or anything like that.
I mean, there is violence in there, but it's so fitting, and it is just like really intense and violent in the way that it should feel, where it feels different from the rest of the book.
Yeah, it's just it's one of my favorite books of the last 5 years, and it's a pleasure to read. My girlfriend last year for Father's Day got me they collected this and 2 other volumes from the same series into a big like leather bound edition called the Martini edition, and it's like one of the prides of my collection.
Yeah, IDW puts out a pretty book.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. So that's my spiel.
All right, Cade, what do you got?
Okay, well, my book, I didn't have a chance to track down a physical copy of it before I came here, but it's a book that I have yet to read, but one of my friends has been getting on me incessantly to read Hellboy, and the one that, according to the reviews, would be the best for me to read first is called Hellboy, Masks and Monsters by Mike Mignola. It features Batman and Starman together with Hellboy to go save the original Starman from the Nazis.
Yeah, if you've read, oh God, who wrote Starman? James Robinson?
Yeah, it was James Robinson.
Yeah, the reboot of Starman that he did, some years ago. It was like late 90s, early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, James Robinson.
Yeah, this is in that series as well. It's that Starman, the newest Starman at that time.
Right.
Who is the son of the original Starman.
Nice. You had me at Batman, cool. So I mean,
you had me at Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something for everybody in that.
Yeah, it's good.
I think Batman and Hellboy are very Reese's peanut butter cuppy in the way that they should be working.
Batman has been pushed in so many different directions. It's very broad in terms of which Batman you want to pick.
That's true.
Where he fits, but there's definitely a Batman that fits into Hellboy.
Yeah, yeah.
I think very, very well.
And as long as it's not...
We talked just recently about Cosmic Odyssey and Mike Mignola and Batman.
Yeah.
And how well he does Batman.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as long as it's not Spawn Batman, I think we're good. Yeah. Because the farther away you want to get from that, the better you're getting.
Yeah.
It's like leaving the town where you were molested as a child. It's a good thing.
Yeah. On that note.
Why you got to go there, Jeff?
Because that's how I feel when I remember buying and reading Batman Spawn and Spawn Batman. I feel like I will never get back what I had before that point. I will always have the memory of that.
Yeah, this one's written by James Robinson, correct?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe so.
It may be a collaboration
It
between
had
the two of
two
them.
written tags and 2 art tags, although according to the reviews, both of them were wrong. So I don't
okay.
really know. But it says written by Mike Mignola and James Robinson with art by Scott Benefiel and Jansen Rodriguez. Whereas the review said that it was actually drawn by Mignola and written by Robinson. Though there are 2 stories in the book, so
Okay.
I'm not sure which
Right.
was drawn by
Yeah.
which.
This is in one of the Starman collections, is where I read it.
I would
which-
figure it too. One like
Yeah.
prestige, like one shots or.
Yeah, it's a really short story and it's really good. It's interesting that reviews tell you that that's the first Hellboy to start with. So I started with the first trade.
I
It
have
said
the
that
first
it said
3 or
that it
4
was a
trades.
good jumping on point for superhero readers to get into the world of Hellboy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Starman is also a fantastic place to start if you know nothing about the DC universe and have never really read superheroes before.
Isn't that a Vertigo title?
It
one?
may have been at some point.
Starman?
Yeah.
I think that was published
But it
under
was-
DC's main imprint.
It is in the DC continuity. So
Right. I know that Starman is part of the DC continuity, but I swear there is a Vertigo Starman series. I don't know if it's necessarily the one that you're thinking of.
possible.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
the James Robinson Starman, what he was able to do was bring back a lot of the legacy that DC had lost
Right.
after they had killed off the original JLA. And he was able to bring the JLA back into the mainstream in a way that was it was very reverent to those characters
Right,
that
right.
people really loved. And because of the Starman series is why the JSA book launched at DC.
Right.
And the one that Jeff Johns would eventually take over. Actually, after the very first trade, I think. James
Right.
Robinson wrote the first trade of JSA.
which was
and then-
which was better.
Well, I mean, I think that's some of Johns' best stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
is on the
his
JSA.
pre-Green Lanterns are right around the same time because he was writing Teen Titans too.
Yeah,
The
which
first
is
trade
my favorite thing that he does.
when they face off against their
Deathstroke and...
no when they're all getting together and the JLA shows up and they're like, you're not doing this, and they're like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And they go toe to toe, and each one goes toe to toe with their adult form, and it's great. It's
Yeah.
it's the stuff that comic books are made out of.
Yeah,
So it
actually-
leaves me asking, what happened?
that's my favorite thing that Johns has ever written, for sure, is Teen Titans.
Yeah.
But JSA is the close second. That stuff's really good. So this is also a good jumping on point. If you like this story with Hellblazer, read Hellblazer. If you like this story because of Starman, there's 6 big fat hardcovers that DC just put out collecting all of James Robinson's run on Starman. I highly recommend that too. I think that stuff's really good.
Yeah, I need to get my hands on it. I've been meaning to read it for a while.
That's great. It's super 90s, like early 2000s art
Love it.
and stuff, but
Love it.
it's really good, and it modernized superheroes in a lot of ways. All right.
So, I did want to point out, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this was not one of the actual Hellboy series trades. It's just called Hellboy Masks and Monsters, if you're looking to go pick it up.
Yeah.
All right. My pick this week, I was actually inspired by reading King City because there's a line in King City cribbed from this work that inspired me to call my mother up and have her ship out to me the first 4 volumes of this work, which sat on my bookshelf when I was a very little kid, and I've read them 50, 60 times. My recommendation for this week is ElfQuest, Book 1. It's by Wendy and Richard Pinney. It was originally written in the very late 70s and early 80s, stretching forward. It's actually out of print right now, but they put the entire catalog, every single story written, up for free on their website for you to go and read.
Wow.
It's a little bit hard to describe. It's definitely been very influential on things, including like Orkstain. The coloring is very beautiful. It's about elves. They're on a quest, obviously. It's kind of set in the Stone Age of another world. There are humans there, but the main characters are these elves who are trying to fit into a world that they're not really made for. Trying to track down the disparate tribes of their people and figure out where they really fit into the world. It's sexual and violent and weird in a way that a lot of comics aren't anymore. It was very influential on me as a child. It's it's really hard to describe other than that it's very, very good and very, very influential for a lot of things in a way that you maybe wouldn't necessarily recognize today.
Can you kind of give us a pitch of the plot of the very first book?
Well, the plot of the first book is basically it's this group of elves who have bonded with wolves and they live in a forest. And at the very beginning, the humans who also live in the forest decide that they're going to kick the elves out by burning the forest to the ground. And so the elves, they run to the trolls who live nearby and they say, we need your help. We've been your friends for a long time. And the trolls kind of fuck them over and take them through the series of caves to an endless desert. And the elves end up going across this desert and finding another group of elves that they did not know existed. And the two tribes kind of go to war a little bit to try and figure out how to live together. And in the midst of this, the leader of the Wood Elves, whose name is Cutter, falls in love with one of the kind of leading females of the village of the Sun People who live in the desert. And it's kind of through their mating ritual, these two tribes learn to live together. It's a very complex story.
It's very good. I've read all of it in black and white. I didn't actually know it was in color.
Yeah, actually, the editions that I have are from the early 80s. The book that I have is older than I am. It's been taped together multiple times. A lot of the pages are very dog-eared. It's one of my prized possessions.
The coloring's really good.
And the coloring is amazing. It actually reminds me kind of the coloring in Orkstein. And flipping through it as we were talking made me wonder in the new light of having read Orkstein recently if maybe this was an influence on that.
Yeah, it was influential on so many creators. I would be surprised if it wasn't at least in some way, superficially,
but
influential.
The art is really great.
Yeah.
It looks a lot different in color than it did in black and white.
Yeah,
it
I think
does.
DC...
And they are all up in color on the website.
Was it DC or Dark Horse that recently bought this and republished it?
I'm going to guess that it was Dark Horse. I don't know 100% for sure. The edition that I have is printed by Starblades.
The editions I read were
81 on it.
little books about manga size
Yeah,
that were
those are the
printed in
new
black
ones.
Yeah,
and
I
white.
think those are Dark Horse.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't remember who had done this.
And really, I recommend you check out the first 4 volumes, which represent a cycle of stories that's kind of the first overarching plot.
Right.
And there's been a number since then. The first one is really the best. But I'm just going to recommend the first one as far as the podcast is concerned. And if you like it, you can check out the rest.
Yeah, I definitely recommend people read ElfQuest. It's an amazing book.
The funny thing about this is that I happen to know that this is not the only thing that Tobiah asked his mother to send him, and I know the other things that he asked her to send him.
That's a secret to be revealed at a later date.
I am frightened. I am frightened.
Oh, God. Are these comics that are going to be
I am
recommended?
frightened. I will say no more.
Okay.
I will say no more.
Let me say that I have an insurance policy in place regarding these particular comics.
And God help us if he ever reveals it.
All right, I'm worried. And you guys should be worried.
This is my all-purpose plan B. But
All right.
we're not going to talk about that one.
You guys should be worried about my recommendation.
Do it
because I'm recommending Wolverine Old Man Logan by Mark Millar. And I know that no one's going to pick it, so I have to give my pitch for the audience. This book sold like hotcakes when it came out.
Of course.
It sold so well. And I'm not just going to say that like it is it's good because it sells well. I actually really enjoy this story. It's the first time I've ever found Wolverine to be a moving character, because what do we all know Wolverine for? He's the best at what he does. What does he do? He kills guys. He runs around with his claws out and he just punches dudes and is like extreme, and that's how people write Wolverine now. Well, this is a Wolverine story where he refuses to take his claws out and he refuses to fight. And if that isn't enough motivation for you to go, I wonder what's going on in this story, I wonder why that happened, then it's a fantastic... stop flipping through it. There's massive spoilers in there.
Question for you. Isn't this the story with the inbred hillbilly hulks that rape people?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
well...
I've read it before.
Oh, okay.
So I don't... There's no spoilers for me. I would remind myself I will never read it again.
Point of personal privilege. Fuck you, Mark Miller. Fuck you.
Yeah,
up your
this is
stupid
everything.
ass.
We've gone head to head about this before. Old Man Logan is everything that is wrong with modern comic books.
It is fantastic. It's
not.
a great
It's really not.
Elseworld story.
It's
You guys
Mark
are so
Miller
outdated.
saying, I hate superheroes. I'm going to just beat on them. You know
What?
what's really
No
cool?
way. No way.
It's-
Let's take a character that has been one-dimensional at best when people like Jason Aaron aren't writing them, and let's take him and put him in a situation that makes him question whether or not being a hero was a good decision.
What about
But I think,
Benders writing?
I see
Because
that's,
that
I
character is
don't,
very
this is
three-dimensional.
not the first time it's happened. Barry Windsor Smith did it in the 80s.
It's one of the first
It's been
times
done
I
before.
felt in modern comics that this has been done.
And I
before.
think that's what you do with Wolverine. Is you put him in a situation
Wolverine.
where you're like, his bestial side is now tame. Was being a hero good? Did he waste his life? Was it? It's like it's been done. Like I fucking read it time and time again.
This is an interesting story. It's a great road trip. He and a blind Hawkeye are traveling across the country
That
to
was
save Hawkeye's
interesting.
daughter. There's so much good callback to what happened to all these heroes because there are no more heroes anymore.
And it could've
How
been
did the
great.
villains win? There's a great twist in the story.
And
The
that's-
Hillbilly Hulks are not as offensive as they should be, especially for me who loves the Hulk. I should
And
be
all of
completely
that-
offended by that.
All of
and I'm
that
not.
is secondary to me. It's like pick it up and read it. Like I'm not saying you shouldn't because I'm definitely I am of a mind about this. And what kills it for me is that twist you're talking about. It's because it's just like, wow, I am totally unmoved, and now I don't care about your story.
You have
like
no
this
soul.
is also got
You have no
one of
soul if you are
it's also
unmoved
got,
by that
like,
twist.
One of the no, because I feel like I'm being manipulated.
You're not
I'm
being
like,
manip-
you know, it'd be really bad. I feel like it's,
Yeah, that's what you do to characters. You go, hey, you know, it'd be really bad if this happened to a character,
Not when
and then
you're-
you put them through that, and that is an interesting story.
when you're a good writer. When you have the chops to do it. Mark Millar does not have the chops to do
He
it.
absolutely does. It works
But
in this story. It
this
absolutely
does
works in
have-
this story.
is a jackhammer when you need a scalpel.
Absolutely not. It works in this story,
I-
and you guys have not read it. And there
I
are so
have
many.
read it.
Okay, you've read
I've
it. There's
read it.
so many Mark Millar stories that are good that you guys hate on Mark Millar, and you haven't read.
I have read the one and only
Excuse
good
me,
story
I've
by Mark
read-
Millar.
You don't
Read
know that because
Son
you haven't
wasn't
read
even
them
written
all.
by
What
him.
have you read? What have I not read by him?
When did you read?
I've read Wanted.
Kick-Ass?
I haven't read Kick-Ass.
Oh, there you go. Cool. Awesome.
Okay, so that's
Your
two
point's
good
invalid.
books out of an entire run on a fucking huge Marvel book, and Wanted, which was a fucking steaming pile.
I haven't read Wanted.
Yeah, well,
But
Mark
there
Millar's
are
problem
good
is that he
stories.
buys his own press. That is his problem. If he wrote from
Cool.
a point of view of like Warren Ellis, where he's like, I'm just some fucking schmo making comic books, then he'd be great.
This is
Warren
that
Ellis has
story,
he
a
though.
ability.
Like,
This is that story, though. Like, in nowhere in here am I ever like,
could
hey,
have
this
been.
is a story
He-
about
he
Mark
comes
Millar.
close.
Like,
He
it's
comes
not
close.
about him.
He comes close.
No. This is
It does have one of the there's a point, and I'm not even going to tell you where it's at, but it is. There is a point in this story where I was like, yeah.
Well, this is Mark Millar's Future Imperfect, then. This is the one good story that he wrote. And it's really interesting because it's an Elseworld story. It's a possible future of the Marvel
It's a
Universe.
what-if story.
It's the kind of stuff... Yeah, exactly. It's a Marvel what if. It's the stuff that I love. And Marvel had the balls to put this right in the middle of Wolverine. Like, these are Wolverine's number, like, 68 or 58 through 60-something. Like, they didn't... Yeah, 66 through 72. Like, they didn't put it off in its own book. They were just like, yeah, this is just going to fall right in the middle of the Wolverine
Well,
run.
I mean, at that
And
point,
they did
Mark
not
Millar
have to
was
do
coming
that. They
off of
could have...
Civil War,
They
wasn't
could have
he?
made this a huge event, and they didn't. They could have made a
when
big
did
deal
this-
out of this, and they absolutely didn't. In fact, it sold out because they didn't tell anyone that it was coming. A lot of people got this issue and saw it on the stands, and it said Old Man Logan, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to read that," not realizing that it was in the Wolverine run, and they came back going, "Oh, I missed these issues," and wanted it. Like, I think that Marvel had a lot. They took a lot of chances with this book, and I think that they were right in doing that. I think this book is really interesting, and I think it's a great take on like what could happen to Wolverine, in the same way that like Dark Knight Returns was like what could happen to Batman. And we haven't even talked about the fact that Steve McNiven.
The art is
the
amazing.
art is fantastic.
The art is
yeah,
amazing.
Steve McNiven is the artist on this, and his facial expressions and the way that he draws this book is amazing. And if anything, it's worth it just for that. But the story is really interesting. The villains are very diabolical and villainous. not in your standard Mark Millar way where they're just like, we're gonna fuck everybody. Like, they actually have strong motivation. There's some characters in here that kind of come out of nowhere and really surprised me. So I think it's a good story. I think it's worth reading. And even if you don't like Mark Millar, I think you should read it because this is so different than everything else he's ever written. And I'm not a huge Mark Millar fan. I just like some of his stuff isn't as bad as everyone says it is.
I think that you like this book because you hate the world. Is really what I think it is. I think I think that sometimes you need to beat your characters up to make them, to make an interesting statement. I think it's what happened in the Infinity Gauntlet when you take everyone's most favorite characters in the Marvel Universe, Captain America and Wolverine and all these great Marvel heroes, and you just have somebody beat the shit out of them for a long time. You have to ground people in a reality.
Well, I don't think that you can make a good story just out of beating the shit.
But this isn't just about beating them up. There's other stuff here.
My favorite parts of this are the road trip part.
Absolutely.
I think that in true Mark Millar style, I think Mark Millar's problem is about editing himself. He says, I have this good idea, and then he turns it to 11. If he had kept it at 10,
well, that's
this
not
book could
his
have been
fault.
great.
That's editorial's fault.
But it's his story.
I agree with self-editing, but there is a point where it's like, hey, a little bit too far. If I'm going to be a good editor, I'm going to tell you to dial it back very slightly.
Yeah, but the thing is that Mark Millar doesn't go a little bit too far. He goes way
he doesn't
far.
step over the line. He jumps over it.
I don't think he goes too far at all in this book. I think that it's a great...
I'm willing to read it.
I think you
should.
my
God, you will.
I'm not going to vote for it.
No, that's fair. I know that no one will vote for it.
Yeah, I've already read it.
That entire podcast will just be a long string of expletives.
Yeah, I just feel like I wouldn't mind giving it another shot, but I feel like
I think everyone should read it, and I think that if you like Wolverine, you obviously should read it. I think if you like Marvel, it's a book that you should read.
I think that if you really like Wolverine, what you need, you should check it out because, it's like I said, I am of a mindset about it. Rucka's run on Wolverine, even though he doesn't care for it, I think is great with Derek Robertson. And Jason Aaron's run on Wolverine is one of the best fucking takes on the character I have ever read. And he beats the shit out of Wolverine in a way that is amazing. And that really makes you connect with the character that I feel like
if you read the reveal in this, the big spoiler of what happens to the Marvel Universe, to all the Marvel heroes, and you don't go, oh, fuck. Then you have no soul.
Well, then I have no soul.
Legitimately have no soul.
I've known this for a while, but I have no soul.
Because it is a powerful moment in comics, and it isn't a jackhammer moment. It's a moment where you're like, well, shit, that really fucking sucks.
It's a jackhammer moment.
It's not. It's absolutely not.
I
know that it is.
No, it's good. It's well handled.
This is the face I make while I'm fucking you. Right? Yeah. That's Mark Miller in a nutshell.
No.
Joe, what are you voting for?
What? Shit, man. I don't know. I think I'm going to vote for Masks and Monsters because that sounds really cool to me. Even though I do want to read ElfQuest, and I probably will read it anyways.
Especially if they're all online.
They are.
Yeah.
Not just the good ones, all of them.
Yeah. All right, Cade,
I'm sorry. This series does get a little bit weak towards the end, but the first, I want to say 8 volumes
are really good.
Great.
I want to vote for them all.
Cade?
I'm going to vote for Parker.
All right.
I'm going to vote for Masks and Monsters also.
All right. I'm going to vote for ElfQuest.
You wanted to vote for Parker.
No, I wanted to vote for ElfQuest. I mean,
I appreciate it.
It's like 4 weeks in a row where Chard's vote doesn't count because...
not 4. It's like every episode my vote doesn't count. I just keep it from being a tie is my role in that. When I don't vote last, we have problems.
I think that, especially if Master Monsters is a smaller book too, though, I don't see a problem with us all reading ElfQuest anyways, and maybe...
Well, I'm sure we could talk about it.
Throwing that in there.
And also,
because it is such a hugely influential work.
Honestly,
people I know that don't even read fucking comic books have read ElfQuest.
I would love to talk about the first 4 volumes of ElfQuest as a complete cycle. So maybe that's something we could, pencil in for a bonus episode at some point.
For sure. Yeah,
we still need to finish Earth X. I'm going to start bringing that up on the podcast.
Yeah, right.
We should also talk about Sullivan Sluggers one time, just like a plug episode.
When it comes out, I think I might do like a little mini review of it.
I feel like we're the Brandon Graham cheerleaders.
Well, he's got a lot of those.
No, I know,
he doesn't need us.
How many people have we done 2 episodes on?
No, nobody yet.
Brandon Graham.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
Well,
that's what I
next
was
week
gonna
will
say.
be Mike Mignola because we did
Cosmic
Odyssey.
Odyssey. I still have your copy of which
Oh yeah.
you're not coming back. I like the way it looks on my bookshelf. Gonna put it right next to Crisis.
Joe got the Absolute Edition Crisis.
My amazing
Oh
girlfriend.
yeah, you
bought
tell
me-
this story. Tell the Valentine's
So
Day story.
I do have to tell the story because it's great. So clearly, for anybody that's listening, me and Jeff Jones know. So Valentine's Day, I wake up my girlfriend. 7:30. We're all gonna go. Me and a few friends and her are gonna go get some breakfast. And she goes, "Go in the living room. I have something for you." And I'm like, I knew. I told her not to get anything for me, but she's incorrigible. So I go and sit down, and she comes out, and she's grinning. She's just got this shit-eating grin on her face. Sits down and hands me this, oblong, like rectangular package. I'm like, of course, she got me comic books. She knows really good. And I open it, and it's the Absolute Edition of fucking Green Lantern Rebirth. Which A, I already have, and B, she knows about how I feel about Jeff Johns, right? And so I'm sitting there with this like smile plastered on my face, going, "Why did she get this for me?" And saying like, I'm like, in the inside, I'm like, "Why did she do this?" I'm like, "Oh, babe, thanks. That's really nice of you." Like, oh, I'm just kind of sitting there going, shit. So then she goes, "And I got you a card," and I open the card. And I take it out, and it says, "Just kidding, your real present is in my bedside table." And that's when I knew that, I've known many moments before, but that's when I knew that she was the one.
Well, what did she get you? That's
She
the
got
whole
me.
point.
She got me the Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Absolute Edition, which comes with a compendium. It's a beautiful hardcover edition
super
with this
jealous.
amazing slipcover and it's beautiful, dust jacket, and it's an amazing edition. It's got all this fucking extra content, and it has a rundown of all the Earths mentioned in the DC universe up to Crisis and what they contained.
And a list of almost every character that's in the book too. if
Yeah,
not every
no, and a
character.
breakdown, I think, of most of the books involved in the crossover. So it's just a wealth of information.
Yeah.
Wolfman does the Marv Wolfman does the introduction, and it's excellent. He answers a whole bunch. He does like an FAQ.
Yeah.
So it's really, really a beautiful edition, and I'm so I've wanted it for years, and it's just one of those things I would never buy myself. So
Yeah. I'm super jelly. of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like it's a really beautiful book.
I have an amazing girlfriend. I really do. She loves
right.
to buy me comic books.
That's
But
good.
I feel like most girlfriends would be like, but
So that's
Alright,
why you
nice.
don't have a soul. You sold your soul for her.
I apparently, or
Yeah.
a pack of cigarettes or something. I don't know.
All right,
bottle
so
of water when you're thirsty.
Hellboy, Masks and Monsters for
Yep.
next
Yep.
episode, and check out ElfQuest because it's free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And,
And go
just
into
like
your
every
local
week,
comic store. Go into your local cosmic store
Mm-hmm.
or your local comic book store and read Old Man Logan, but don't buy it.
Yeah, burn steal it.
All right.
We out.
And just like every week, read all the books, including Old
Read
Man
all the
Logan.
books.
Don't
Read
read Old
Parker
Man Logan.
twice and don't read Old Man Logan.
All right.
I'm gonna read Old Man Logan.
It's worth it. Okay. All right.
All right, we out.
We out. Bye.
Later.